You know, Salvador Dali once said, "A true artist is not one who is inspired, but one who inspires others." And honestly, I think that's kind of stupid. Not because I necessarily disagree with the quote, because I don't. I actually agree with it almost in its entirety. But to say someone isn't a true artist because they were inspired versus inspiring others is kind of a bold statement. I mean, since the dawn of time, since the dawn of creation, people have drawn inspiration from the people and the world around them. And I think that's one of the most important parts of a creative's process. And today, I want to tell you about some of the people who inspire me. Hello, hello. Hope you're doing absolutely fantastic today. First things first, if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. And if you've never seen my face, never seen one of my videos, my name is McKenna. I own a digital media company called Studio SB Creatives. And today, I'm going to be talking to you about 10 photographers who inspire me on a day-to-day basis for a plethora of different reasons, actually. So I'm going to go through these 10 people in no particular order, and I'm going to tell you why they inspire me. So without further ado, and without wasting any time, let's just get into it. The first person that I want to talk about today is Cameron Walker. So kind of a hidden gem, sitting at just under 8,200 followers. It says that he's from the Olympic Peninsula in the United States. I don't actually know what that is or where that is, but anyway, Cameron here is a landscape photographer, and the reason that Cameron made it on the list today is that he not only takes some of the most beautiful landscape photos that I've ever seen in my life, but I just love his use of color. I love his muted tones, his really soft greens and blues, and even on his brighter photos, the light that he shoots in also just feels so soft and so dreamy, and everything that he does just it feels like it's straight out of a book. Every single picture he takes looks like it's some scene from a movie. And I think it really comes down to how he's able to use these muted colors to tell these stories through the places that he travels to. It just feels like this dude went on a hike and took a camera versus that he went on a hike to shoot photos. They almost feel like they're Red Dead Redemption, solo playthrough, not actually doing any of the missions, but just enjoying the scenery. There's something about his work that just feels so authentic, and I just really like it. So next up on the list is someone somewhat similar to Cam in a couple of different ways, but also entirely different at the same time. And it is a woman by the name of melvolkman. And the reason that she made it on the list today is that, like Cameron, she also uses these really soft, earthy tones in her work. To me, Mel's work almost feels as if the pictures that she takes exists only within a dream. And I don't mean that her work looks dreamy or that these places are unbelievably, are so unbelievable that they only exist within a dream. I don't know if it's her editing style or what. The way that her photos look make me personally feel like I'm sitting in a dream, like I'm looking at a scene that only would exist inside my mind when I'm inside a dream. There's something so comforting and slightly uncomfortable about her work at the same time. And that's not a negative, but that's what I really like about it. So, with that being said, let's move on to our third person. So the third photographer I have on my list today is another landscape photographer by the name of Dennis Helbig. And keeping a similar theme with the other two photographers, Dennis's work is also very soft, but what I really like about Dennis's work is his use of blues. If I could get all the blues in my photos to look exactly like his, I would, but I can't. I haven't figured it out. And I feel like if I actually did that, I would be copying him too much, and then I'd probably hate myself anyway. But there is just something that I really like about the way that he uses the cool tones in his landscapes to tell his story and show his personality in that way. And he shoots a lot of water and a lot of snowy scenes, which I think works really well with those cooler tones. The way that you can tell that he just takes his time to photograph these landscapes and focus on a specific subject using lines to guide your eye through the pictures. I just really like his compositions in connection with his color grading. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and he absolutely deserves a spot on today's list. Moving on to our next photographer, we're going to be kind of moving out of the landscape photography genre for just a minute. Like I said, these aren't in any particular order. I just wrote them out however they came across. So I think I have a couple more landscape people on here, but for right now, we're going to make a jump over to some portrait photography. And I don't know how you can't love this man's pictures. Like, he takes some of the most creative, most beautiful portraits that I've ever seen in my life, and I would absolutely kill to have my portrait taken by him. One of my favorite portraits that he has is this, like, I don't know what you would call it. It's just this very time period looking man with a sweater, and he's got like scuba diving goggles on his head, and God, just the colors and the details that show through in his work, it makes me sick in the best way. Everything he does just feels like a beautifully painted portrait, but they're photos, and somehow he just manages to convey so much emotion, and they're so unique that I don't really even know what to say about them. His work is truly some of the most beautiful examples of photography that I've ever seen in my life personally. He's got to be, one of my top 3 favorite photographers of all time. The pictures and images that he's able to create with the visions that he has in his mind, like, everything is perfectly executed. And to put it in simple terms, it's amazing. So be sure to check some of these people out. They absolutely deserve whatever love that they can get. So without further ado, let's move on to the next person. So entering the halfway point in our list today, we have a film photographer, actually, by the name of Yamin. And the reason that Yamin made it on my list today is not only for his use of colors, which comes from the fact that he uses film, but I really like the simplicity in his work. And I really like the timelessness of how everything looks. Like, everything is very centered, everything is, very deliberate. It honestly almost kind of reminds me of like a Wes Anderson film. I like the kind of dreamy, timeless look that he is able to achieve with his photos. Not everything on his page is absolutely perfect. I mean, not everybody is going to take a photo that you like, but for the most part, he's very consistent with the way his work looks. I really like the fact that it's kind of straight on and in your face, and it just feels very authentic and timeless, and that's pretty much why he made it on here today. It's a little bit different, but I do really like it. So, yeah. All right, so next up on my list of my favorite photographers, we have a true hidden gem, one of my personal favorites, like truly personal favorites, a New York-based photographer by the name of Jeremy Ross. And Jeremy Ross is one of the very first people that I started following when I first got into photography. He was one of the very first accounts that I came across where I looked at his work and was like, whoa, that's where I want to be in a couple of years. Now, in his work, you can see a little bit more contrast, but it's super clean, and everything he does feels super intentional. I love his colors. I like the warmth. I like the greenish, bluish tones and undertones in his work. He has deleted a lot, and I can tell that he's kind of starting to really find who he is as a photographer, but to me, Mr. Jeremy Ross here takes a lot of photos that I think I would take myself. I see a lot of myself in him, and I think it's because I draw so much inspiration from him. I'm just now starting to realize that my photos look very similar in a lot of ways, and I'm not just saying color grading wise, I'm saying like compositionally. And if there was a photographer on this list that I could compare myself with, which I don't condone comparing yourself to other people, but I think that I would be most like Jeremy, and that is the reason that he made it on my list today. All right, so nearing the end of our list, we have another photographer who does a little bit of everything, and he goes by the name of Joshua Winders. What I really like about Josh's work is that something about it just feels so fast-paced. It feels very exciting and very fun to look at, while also still being almost perfect compositionally. Not to mention, I really like his use of colors in these, also very similar to my personal style. His work is kind of what I aspire to be with my work. You know, I want it to look exciting. I want it to look not necessarily fast-paced like his looks. I don't want my work to look like his work, but I kind of want my work to feel like his work. I want people to look at my work like I look at his work and feel inspired to go shoot something and feel like there's an excitement in life that I'm missing that I just don't have yet. I think that Joshua here is able to capture those feelings really, really well. I love that he's constantly posting pictures and videos with these cafe racer bikes as one of the main subjects that he likes to shoot. Like, I think that stuff is so cool. For a while, I think his work actually inspired me to get a cafe racer. You know, there's a couple different sides to me. One side is this city traveler, fast, expensive cars, expensive tastes. And then I have this side of me, which is kind of my more explorer, woodsy, camping, you know, ripping it up on a dirt bike kind of personality. So his work inspires me on rural side of me, and that is why he made it on the list today. Moving into our last three photographers, and moving back to landscapes for just a moment, we have a photographer by the name of Paige Tingy. And oh my God. As you've seen in a lot of these photos, I like moody, muted, or darker tones in a lot of my photos. And Paige is just so not that. She uses such bright and saturated colors, but not like oversaturated. She brings up the darks, and her use of color is so incredible, and it's so different. I feel like it's like a super, super strong representation of her personality. I think that shines through really well in her work. Not to mention, she travels to some of the most amazing, beautiful places, and she's not just showing up, taking a photo, and leaving. Like, she be hiking through these places, and she really goes to these crazy places. And the reason that she made it on my list today is that she is absolutely the person that I aspire to be. And I don't want to emulate her work by any means, but I want to emulate her life. She has it all figured out. She's traveling around the world taking photos, and that's what I want in life. And I am very envious of her, but not in like a bad way. I mean, she is just so inspiring to me, and I love looking at everything that she creates and posts on social media. It is absolutely beautiful, and she absolutely deserves a spot on this list. All right, moving on to our second to last photographer, we have Clint. That's it, just Clint. Now, Clint's work is a little bit different than the work that we've seen from anyone else. He is also a portrait photographer, but he focuses on, taking portraits of these incredibly gorgeous women, but not in like the weird, creepy way that photographers tend to do, or even the plain Jane kind of way that photographers do. I'm kind of looking at the women lingerie photographers on that one. That's not all of them, but I mean, if you know what I mean, then You know what I mean? But the reason that Clint made it on the list today is that if I was going to photograph anything in the world and do it a certain way, it would be like Clint. Now, he is a film photographer, so he gets this very unique look from his photos right out of camera. But the way that he photographs these women, he does these lingerie type shoots, but in such a tasteful way. Honestly, my dream as a photographer, it's not so much this anymore, but when I first started, I would have loved nothing more than to have done one of those like stylistic shoots from Playboy. The reason that I liked those photos so much from like the older, more retro Playboys is that they really took their time using sets and making photos versus taking them. And when I look at Clint's work, I see a lot of what inspired me from that style of photography in his work. Nowadays, you can just kind of go find your run-of-the-mill OF model just about anywhere and take photos. But that's so not what this is about. There is something so tasteful and classic and timeless about the way that Clint takes his photos that 90% of the photos that he takes could end up on the wall in anyone's house and it wouldn't feel out of place or awkward. He has actually taken one of my favorite photographs of all time, and it's this very nude woman sitting on this glass coffee table with this newspaper in her hands. There's just something about, the tones, the position, the composition. I know that it's not a set, but like this Victorian style house with the chandelier, like everything about this photo was planned out and picked for a reason. And that's what I really like about it. I like the fact that it was planned. And I like the fact that there is a purpose behind every single one of his works. And that is why he made it on my list today. All right. We're at the end of the list. And I have talked about this man multiple times. He is one of my biggest inspirations, not actually in photography necessarily, but just as a person, just in the things that he does. Like, he is the reason that I started recording YouTube videos. He is the reason I do a lot of the things I do and talk about a lot of the things that I talk about on this channel. He has been one of my biggest inspirations when it comes to cameras. So that I had to save the number one spot for my guy, PeterMckinnon. I have been watching every single one of Pete's videos for like 3-4 years now. Every single time he uploads, I am there. Like I said, Pete has inspired me in so many different ways, and it's actually a bucket list item for me to go with him on a shoot somewhere. And when I say anywhere, I mean I would go down the street and shoot photos with him. Not only because I think that he's an extremely talented photographer, but he just seems like such a cool dude to be around. And a lot of his like earlier work, and I don't mean like early in his career work, I just mean like earlier work, like from a couple years ago, the work of his that I was introduced to is what kind of started me and sparked my interest and sparked my creativity to take photos a certain way and edit them a certain way. I really liked his moody tones, but at the same time, how rich he was able to get his colors to look. So for a multitude of different reasons, that is why Pete is on my list. That is why he is the number one spot. Like, he's just been an inspiration to me in so many different ways. And honestly, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be filming these videos right now. So that's actually pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you had any thoughts on this video or you like this video, go ahead and leave me a comment. If you are a photographer and you agree with my list, or if you have other photographers that you think I should personally go ahead and check out, also go ahead and drop me a comment. I'd love to see what other work is out there inspiring other people. Lastly, if you want to see more content like this, or you want to see what other things I get up to or talk about in the future, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. So I hope that you thoroughly enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one.